Orlo's exit. The great disrespect. Sausage Juwan's portrayal of Orlo was the selling point that got me to watch The Great, an occasionally true story about how Catherine the Great rose to power in Russia, and is only one of the many recent comedic adaptations of historical events told through a colorblind and queer lens. This genre is very important to those underrepresented in history and in today's media because, well, unless you were privileged and savvy enough to leave a coded diary or poetry like Anne Lister or Emily Dickinson, you weren't ever mentioned in historical texts for your differences, unless they got you killed. And even then, you may not have been a footnote. So, what really boils my piss is, when we finally have recognized history and the media's failings in representation, we rectify it. And then make the same mistake of killing them off! Oh yeah, spoilers for Season 3 of The Great, by the way. Also, should mention, there are real-world reasons why Sacha Dhawan left the cast, and that they are totally valid, and I am so looking forward to what he creates in a more produced-like capacity, and then my issues are solely with how his asexual character ended up. And why no one else seems to be upset about it. Let's start from the very beginning. When Catherine meets Orlo, he's crying over a book and has all these ideas similar to her about how to improve Russia. He's not like the other characters around him, obsessed with killing or fucking, but because of these characters, he chooses to side with Catherine, plot a coup, and finally fulfill his dreams of fixing Russia. This is all during Season 1, and during that time, Orlo grows into himself, is bolstered by Catherine, and empowered by his ideas. He's not naive like Catherine, which is why it takes so long for him to come out of his shell, risk his life for her, and trust that she'll help him fix Russia.
I cannot join for the simple reason you have already proved yourself incapable of executing it successfully. You chose me. A coward.
And then, Orlo kills a Swedish man to save himself, tasting violence, and embraces the darker parts of himself that want Peter dead, and causes some differences of opinion with Catherine. He attempts to kill Peter in Season 3, has a talk with Catherine, and then he tries to free her of him, and is accidentally shot by her, and then eaten by bears that were meant to eat traitors of a rule. Complicated, convoluted, and inconsequential to the main plot? Absolutely. Because Catherine has no idea she's killed him, and it's assumed he left or died after his childhood, and then the only one at court who cares that he's missing is his girlfriend. But that doesn't amount to much in the end. The reason why I mention this arc is because it was heading into self-destructive territory, yes. But they have ideas at play after his death and during Peter's death that could have made it more substantial, because his arc embraces another factor altogether, and that is his asexuality. As the political plot carries the show, it is the characters that drive it. It is their desires and ultimately their portrayals that keep the show important, emotional, and funny. Orlo recognizes he is different from everyone at court. That's why he hides away with his books so he won't be bullied as much or just killed for being quote-unquote dull to Peter. But then he tries to figure himself out. He has sex with a male guard, which he justifies as an experiment, and tells the guard that fucking a guy is similarly disappointing to fucking a woman. He says it more eloquently, of course. And then he meets a woman who sparks his intellectual interest and initiates a romance. And even though he connects with her, he still doesn't sexually, because that's just who he is. But she, being a great partner, tries to make it worth his while and reads to him while they have sex because he's rather be reading than fucking. It's a really cute portrayal and honest journey of asexuality, especially during a time and place that typically wouldn't get it. And during present day, a lot of people still don't fucking get it. And then Season 3 drops. And after an introspective journey into himself, considering sexuality, ideals, and violence, the writers kill him off. But they killed him off as though he were a traitor, when he was really the bureaucratic backbone to Catherine's regime. The only time he wasn't loyal and could be considered a traitor was when he tried to kill Peter, Catherine's love, so that his Russia could thrive. But also so he could stop Catherine from flying into that abusive birdcage. He sees their love for how it is, as cynical as that may be. And I was hoping, at the very least, his death would hang over Catherine's head and be revealed at a devastating time. If the reveal had culminated after Peter's death and her avoidance of it and her almost resignation to power, the way her grief manifested could have hit that much harder. I am disappointed by his death, and I do acknowledge that this is a comedy show and the shock laughter did kick in there. Yes, I laughed. I'm a terrible person. But a simple acknowledgement to Orlo's death would have gone so far. Especially given how the theme of death really adds up during the season, with Elizabeth mournfully talking to Peter the Great's ghost, to Peter actually dying and Pugachev dying, and Catherine literally burying Archie and going slightly mad from grief. That acknowledgement could have gone a long way, thematically, emotionally, and just respectfully for the queer audience. I mean, I know he's not the actual Orlo that the real Catherine the Great would later have as a lover, but this Orlo was a major side character, as important as Mariel. Also, why Mariel? Why, I don't, no one's bulletproof. That is for sure, certainly not Orlo as evidence, but there is so much potential in killing him in a different way, or following through with the potential devastation and acknowledgement from Catherine would be. But I guess we'll never know, for the bears have eaten away the evidence. I mean, if this is the price we had to pay for Sasha to want to be in power with the Doctor, I will pay it. No doubt. But Orlo's death will never sit right with me. But I try. I'm trying to grieve. Not doing my best, though. What are your ideas on his death? Am I overreacting due to my inherent bias? Am I crazy to be upset at this disrespect, even though the death did its job, comedy-wise? And it did help with the world building, because, like, the court doesn't really give a fuck about other stuff. They just all focused on what's happening with Catherine, which is fair, because they had to live under her. Oh no, we're going on to the rambling regrets part of the video, so I'm just going to end here while I believe in myself and my points, and don't backtrack on everything that I believe thoroughly, because Orlo mattered. He really mattered. And asexual characters are really underrepresented. So, happy Pride, let me know what you think, and thank you for listening. Bye!